Before you accept a new job, move to a new city, or even agree to start on Monday, pause. Pull out your Canadian work permit because one line on that document decides whether you can start immediately or whether you'll be waiting weeks or months. And I've seen people get burned by this. They get a great offer, they assume they're open, then they look closely and see an employer name on their work permit. That means that they cannot legally switch jobs yet. You get this wrong and you can lose income, you can trigger a brand new application, and in the worst case, you can create problems for your future extension and permanent residence plans. Hi, I'm immigration lawyer Evelyn Ackah. I have over 25 years of experience helping people obtain their work permits here in Canada. So let's just jump right into what we will be discussing today. In the next 60 seconds, I'll show you exactly where to look to confirm if your permit is open or closed. Then I'm going to break down what each type actually allows in real life, changing employers, moving cities, second jobs. And if you're on a closed permit and you want out, I'll show you the safest next steps so you can change jobs fast and legally, including a little known option that may let some workers start a new job sooner after they apply, instead of waiting in silence. The 15-second test. Okay, grab your work permit. If you're on your phone, pause the video and pull it up right now. You're looking for 3 things on your work permit. Number 1, employer name. If you see a specific employer listed like employer ABC company, that's an employer-specific permit, commonly called a closed work permit. Employer-specific permits literally include the employer you can work for in the conditions of the work permit. If there is no employer name and the wording shows you can work for most employers, that usually points to an open work permit. Open work permits are not job-specific, which is great if you have one. Number 2, location and occupation conditions. Closed permits often include your occupation and may include the location depending on your situation. Employer-specific permits can include the location where you can work, if applicable. Number 3, remarks and restrictions. Some open permits are open, but they still have restrictions written in the conditions. For example, restrictions related to certain job types, unless you've completed a medical exam. So if you're working in healthcare or working with children, you need a medical. If you only remember one thing, remember this: employer name printed is closed. No employer name and open wording, open with possible conditions listed, means it's an open work permit. What an open work permit really means. Let's talk about what an open work permit really means. It means because it's open, it doesn't mean that there are no rules. It means you're not tied to one specific employer. So in general, an open work permit lets you work for almost any employer in Canada. But there are 2 big employer exceptions you should know. You cannot work for an employer listed as ineligible for non-compliance. And you can't work for employers that regularly offer certain adult entertainment services. That's always listed on most work permits. Also, even with an open work permit, you may have restrictions listed on the permit, like job type restrictions if a medical exam is required for certain occupations. So in real life, with an open work permit, you can usually change employers without applying for a new work permit. You can move cities without asking permission, usually, as long as there's no location listed, and sometimes work multiple jobs, as long as you're respecting the conditions printed on your permit and all their employment laws. I had a client, let's call him John, who came on an open work permit. 2 months into his first job, he found a better fit. He switched in a week. No restart your entire life paperwork spiral. He didn't have to do any of that. That's the upside of having an open work permit. True mobility. Open work permit equals job mobility, but always read the conditions line by line, because open can still be open with restrictions. What a closed permit really means? Now the closed work permit. This is where people get trapped without realizing it. An employer-specific work permit allows you to work according to the conditions on the permit, including the name of the employer and possibly the location. Translation: if you want to switch employers, you usually need to qualify and apply for a brand new work permit before you work for the new employer. True story. Let me tell you about Sandra. Sandra thought she had freedom. She got a better job offer across town and she assumed she could just switch employers, and then she noticed the employer name on her permit. Her new job turned into months of waiting and a painful work gap that cost her a lot of money. That gap isn't just annoying, it hits your income, your stress levels, and sometimes your long-term plans. Closed work permit equals you can work, but only inside the box printed on your permit. That employer, that job, and sometimes that location. The scenarios everyone asks about. Let's make this practical. Scenario 1. You want to change employers. You have an open work permit. You can change employers while the permit is valid. Closed permit. You must apply for a new work permit if you're eligible. You can't change employers until you get a new work permit. Scenario number 2. You want to move to another city. Open work permit? Generally, that's fine unless you have a location restriction on your permit. Some open work permits can be restricted, so make sure you read them. Closed work permit, check your conditions. Location may be part of your authorization. You might not be able to move. Scenario 3, you want a second job on the side. Open work permit, that's often possible, as long as you follow your permit conditions and the job isn't restricted for you. Closed work permit, if your permit is employer-specific, your authorization is tied to that employer. You cannot work a second job. Scenario 4, you lose your job. This is the scary one. If you have a closed permit and you lose the job connected to your work permit, IRCC guidance is clear. To continue working, you generally need a new job offer and you have to apply for a renewal of a new work permit. And you must stop working immediately until your new work permit is approved. If your plan depends on switching jobs quickly, your work permit type isn't a detail, it's a whole game. Who typically gets open versus closed? Now we usually see which types. We'll figure that out. Common examples of open work permits are postgraduate work permit holders, PGWP. They're one of the biggest examples of people that have open work permits. Some spouses or common law partners may qualify for an open work permit, but this area changed last year and eligibility for spouses of international students is limited to specific categories and academic programs. This started last year. Family open work permits for certain foreign workers also have more specific eligibility rules, also changed last year. Some people waiting on permanent residence pathways may qualify for work permits designed for PR applicants, like a bridging open work permit. Common examples of closed permits: if you came through a job offer that resulted in an employer-specific work permit, your work permit will usually list the employer name, and conditions like how long and where you can work are on that work permit. Don't guess based on what program you think you're under. Your permit's conditions are the final answer. The fastest legal way to change employers on a closed permit? Now the question I get constantly: okay, my permit is closed. I have a new job offer. Do I really have to wait? Here's the clean rule. If you have an employer-specific work permit and you want to change jobs or employers, you must apply for a new work permit. That's it. You have to apply for a new work permit. But here's the important part. IRCC also says you may be able to start your new job before the application is fully approved if you request authorization while they process it. That request is not automatic. You have to follow the process IRCC describes, including using their web form and the wording that they provide on the official page. And yes, they're also an official temporary public policy intended to help certain workers in Canada change jobs faster after they apply so they can begin working while the new work permit application is pending, if they meet the conditions. This translates into, this can be the difference between I'm stuck for months and months and I can't work and I can move quickly and legally to a new employer. But you need to do it the right way because working for the wrong employer on a closed permit can cause serious problems. The biggest risk people take, let me be blunt, if you work for a different employer than the one listed on your employer-specific work permit, you're violating your work permit authorization. And that's not a slap on the wrist situation. It can affect your future applications and your ability to even stay on track or remain in Canada if you're caught. And even if you're on an open permit, your conditions still matter, like job restrictions tied to medical exams or employer restrictions. The fast move is not secretly working. The fast move is reading your permit, applying properly, and using the official authorization options if you qualify. So, here's your next step right now. Take 30 seconds today and check your permit for the employer name, conditions, and remarks. If you're closed and planning a switch, plan it before you quit or accept a start date you can't legally meet. And if your bigger goal is permanent residence, your work history and compliance truly matter, so don't gamble with it. Next, watch my video on express entry mistakes that get applications rejected, because if you're building your future in Canada, the fastest way to lose time is one preventable mistake. Click that now.